Maharishi-Jyotish, Vedic-astrology, the mathematical science of prediction. Averting the danger before it arises. An introduction.
Maharishi's Vedic approach has its basis in the timeless and complete knowledge of natural law, expressed in the Veda and Vedic literature. This evening, with our very special speakers, we will be going into a precious aspect of Maharishi's Vedic science known as Maharishi-Jyotish or Vedic astrology. Maharishi-Jyotish is the science of prediction, which reveals the relationship of the individual life with the cosmic life and enlivens their fundamental basis in consciousness. Throughout history, every culture has practiced some method of predicting the future. These approaches have been based on knowledge, however partial, of the individual's connection to the universe. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who has been teaching the Transcendental Meditation program throughout the world for the last 38 years, has illuminated the key point which has been missing from these systems: the essential connectedness of the individual and the universe in the silent field of consciousness. By putting the title Maharishi in front of Jyotish, we indicate the full value of Jyotish, its intimate connection to consciousness, and its true purpose in developing enlightenment. We are very delighted this evening to have with us some great experts in this field, Pandit Adish Narayana Jha and Mr. Bhuvnesh Sharma. Both are from Brahmin families, which is known for keeping the Vedic knowledge alive. Pandit Jha has his postgraduate degree in Jyotish and Sanskrit. He has been working for Maharishi-Jyotish since 1989 and has traveled throughout Europe and the East. Mr. Sharma, also a TM-Siddhi administrator, has his postgraduate degree in physics. He has studied Jyotish extensively and has been working for Maharishi-Jyotish since 1986. In addition, he has traveled to more than 35 countries throughout the world, offering his words in consultations.
Ya kundendu tushar har dhavala, ya shubhrvastravata, ya veena vardand mandit kara, ya shvet padmasana, ya brahmachyut shankar prabhatibhir devai sada vandita, samam patu saraswati bhagavati nisheshya jadyapaha. Jai Gurudev. So it's a great joy today, this evening, to introduce Maharishi-Jyotish. Maharishi-Jyotish is one of the disciplines of Vedic science and technology. When we say Vedic science and technology, this is the science and technology of the Veda. The term Veda itself means pure knowledge. What happens is that when we want to know of an object, to know about an object, there are three things which are involved: the knower, the process of knowing, and the object of knowledge. In Vedic terminology is very special because it contains the meaning within the term. It conveys the full meaning of the object which we are referring to. So in Vedic terminology, the knower is known as Rishi, the process of knowing is known as Devata, and the object of knowledge is known as Chandas. When we are meditating, I think almost everyone, when we are meditating, the knower is experiencing its own self. So at that time, the pure consciousness itself is the knower. It is also the process of knowing, as well as it is the object of knowledge. So there are three different things together. This togetherness in Vedic terminology we call as Samhita. The word Samhita itself means togetherness. So this Samhita, the pure knowledge, it is like a body of knowledge, the Veda, and then like every body has different parts. Similarly, this one body of knowledge, it has 6 parts. Those are called Vedangas. Again, the beauty of the Vedic terminology is Anga means the part of the body. So Vedang means the part of the body of this knowledge, the part of Veda. Just as we say that it has 6 parts of the body, we can give an analogy that Maharishi-Jyotish is compared to be the eyes of the Veda. Just as we say that Maharishi-Jyotish is compared to be the eyes of the Veda, we know the value of eyes in our life. It actually brings all life to us. It brings light. Because Jyoti, the term Jyoti also means light. So the knowledge of Maharishi-Jyotish brings more light to our life. Now, even though this knowledge of Jyotish, it was cognized by great sages in India from the time immemorial. But unfortunately, the technique of transcending, the technique of knowing the knower was lost. And that is why, even though the knowledge of Jyotish was being used in India from that time, from time immemorial, but it was being used only partially, not fully, because the basis of the knowledge was lost. The basis of the knowledge is the knower himself. We can say that the whole creation, it is just like the expression of the pure consciousness. Like we have different waves on the surface of ocean, we can say that all the waves on the surface of ocean, they are nothing else but the expression of the silent level of ocean. So similarly, even these heavenly bodies which we think it is affecting our life, it is nothing else but the expression of our own pure consciousness. So those great sages, they have cognized the influence of the pure consciousness, its emerging of the creation from the pure consciousness and its interaction. Now you can imagine the difference between the modern science and the Vedic science. The modern science, it has taken the man to the moon, but they have not yet given any precise formula of calculating the effect of one single planet moon on different individuals at the same time, how it affects in a different manner. You see, when the moon is full, the same full moon, it can inspire a poet to write a good poetry. But on the other hand, to a lunatic, it may cause big problems. But they have not yet precisely calculated a formula of differentiating how the same moon is going to affect different individuals at the same time. Fortunately, those great sages, they have given precise formula of calculating the effect of all the 9 planets on the individual nervous system. So, what we do in Maharishi-Jyotish, we make a chart, a representation of the position of planets at the time of birth of the individual. And from that, we can cover all aspects of the life of individual. Now you can imagine if you go to a doctor just to know what problem you have, he may ask for so many tests and still we may not be sure what the problem is. But when you come to a Jyotishi, one can see like all aspects of the life of individual. It is just again this chart, the Jyotish chart which we prepare, it is again like a Samhita. Samhita means the totality of knowledge. So this chart for the individual, it has all the knowledge contained within this chart. It has, we can say, all the physiological aspects, psychological aspects, mental abilities, all faculties, they are covered within this chart. What we do, there are 12 houses in the chart. When just as we say houses, because there may be many people here who may have enjoyed the consultations or they may have done some courses in Jyotish, so they know that there are 12 houses. Just as we say house, it means it has different facilities, it has different rooms. So when you come to a Jyotishi, he can refer to some main aspects of the house, but there are still many more aspects left untouched. So it depends again on the consciousness of the person who is coming for consultation, which aspects he is interested in. But anyway, all the aspects are there. Within 30-40 minutes, the individual can have an aerial view of one's life. We cover the aspect of the personality, that is the first house. First house is the house of the personality of the individual. Then we talk about the wealth, family, efforts, because it is said in our scriptures, Bhagyam phalatu sarvada, nacha vidya, nacha paurusham. Sometimes we are trying to achieve something, but we are not able to, even though we may have a lot of knowledge, we may make a lot of effort, but still there may be some obstructions. But when the time is favorable, we get more success even with less effort. So we talk about the efforts of the individual. We also talk of comforts, education, children, health, as we were just talking about Maharishi Ayurvedic University. Ayurveda, that is another discipline of Vedic knowledge. And when, if you go to a physician, he may suggest also to know your Jyotish chart, because there are 20 approaches in Maharishi Ayurveda, and Jyotish is one of the aspects of Maharishi Ayurveda. Because in India, those Ayurvedic physicians, they were knowing that sometimes you may be under the influence of a planet which may be causing some big health problems. And just as that period of the planet passes, the individual may have perfect health. So, being Vedic knowledge, Ayurveda as well as Jyotish, they cover all aspects of the life of individual. Ayurveda talks of Jyotish, and Jyotish, it tells about the health. So both are complete in itself. We also talk of compatibility. What happens is, sometimes there may be two individuals, they may be very successful in their lives individually, but just as they become partners, there are problems in life. While some other individuals, they can have very good success through partnership. So we can say whether the individual has a good chart for having success through partners, or one has to be careful in partnerships. Not only that, if there are two people who want to have some partnership, we can say whether the partnership will be evolutionary for both, or there may be some obstructions or problems. In case already the partnership is existing, we can also mention at what time they should be careful in the partnership, or which type of activity will be good at that time. Like, because what happens is that nature is like mother, and no mother would like the children to suffer. If we are violating the laws of nature, then only the problem comes. So if we are using these aspects in our life in such a manner that we are getting more support from nature, the same partnership may bring more bliss and evolution. We also talk of activity. Sometimes we see some people come for consultation and they are doing something from last 20 years or 30 years in life, but that activity is not bringing them fulfillment or happiness. So it is good to know in advance which type of activity is good for which individual. After covering all aspects of the life of individual, we come to another unique principle cognized by those great sages, and that is called like timing the events in the life of individual. What happens is that once you have a like road map of your life. It is considered auspicious actually. If you are going on a journey, it is considered good to have a road map so that you are not going on a wrong track. So similarly, it is considered very auspicious in our life to have a road map of our life. This timing of the events in the life of the individual is just like a road map. What we do, we can mention at what time which planet will be governing or influencing your activities. It is just like if you have different bulbs of different colors in some room, just as you have red color bulb on, the whole room is shaded with the red color. And you see things in a different way. Just as you put off this red bulb and you put on the blue, the whole shade of the things may change. So we have seen, just as the main period of the planet which is governing the individual changes, even the individual himself may think, oh, I am thinking now in some different manner. So it is good to know in advance at what time which type of influence or activity will be inspired by those planets. Because as you were saying, nature wants us to be more happy. But sometimes when we are violating the laws of nature, there may be problems or obstructions. Sometimes the nature wants us to come out into activity, while some other times nature wants us to go more within. Like we have day and night, a time to rest and a time to work. So similarly, there are some times to explore within, to have more evolution in life, to go more towards the pure consciousness, to experience the bliss within. And some other times it is good to come out into activity. So we can know which planet is good for going more within, or which is another planet which is good to come out into activity. We have seen in the case of those people who have started meditation in life, when the same planet came earlier in their early childhood or when they were quite young, it has caused big problems. But now, if they are meditating, it brings, we can say, more evolution, more faster progress in their life. What happens if we are starting some activity at a time when nature wants us to go within or to decrease the activity? If unknowingly we are trying to increase the activity, we may end up in a hospital. Because after all, nature still is governing and nature wants to decrease the activity. So it has to use some other means. So if we know in advance, we can take the preventive measure. That is why we like to say, it is not something like we are going to say tomorrow this is going to happen. We are not going to say like this, that tomorrow this will happen. We will say that this planet will influence or inspire this type of things in your life. Now if you take some preventive measures, you can make it even better. In case the track is smooth, you can take some preventive measures today so that you have not to face those problems. Maharishi says, if tomorrow is so sure, it means we are not doing anything today. We can do something today, we can use the preventive measures so that we can have more faster evolution. There should be more progress, more smooth path. So we can take preventive measures by knowing in advance which type of planet will be influencing our activities at what time. Even the gardener or a farmer, he looks for a proper time when to plant the seed. Because if you are planting a seed in some wrong season, what will happen? It will not sprout well. So similarly, in the case of human beings, now this knowledge is available, fortunately, that we can select a favorable time in our life for specific activities. Otherwise, we start some activity, we try our best, but still there are failures. Having a Jyotish consultation is like we have seen the comments of the people, those who have got initiation into meditation or Siddhi program, when they come out of a consultation, the comments are like they feel as if they have been initiated again. That is the feeling of the people who come out of consultation, because now they know their life more. When we talk of preventive measures, the technology to prevent any problem and to have more progress and bliss in our life, basically every discipline of Vedic knowledge is like a preventive measure. But in Maharishi-Jyotish consultations, we are referring to 3 remedial measures. The first of which, I think almost everyone of you may be practicing, the transcendental meditation and Siddhi program. Because what happens is, through meditation, you are knowing and experiencing your own self. While through Jyotish also, you are knowing your own self. So they go again hand in hand, being the Vedic knowledge. Meditation also helps you to know yourself, and Jyotish also tells you more about your abilities, your potentials, so that you are able to know yourself more. Even those who have enjoyed the consultations, they see the influence of the planets just as if they are witnessing the influence of the planets. So they are as if they have separate existence, and these planets are just influencing at a very superficial level. So the first remedial measure is the TM and TM-Siddhi program. Even we have seen in the case of governors or siddhas, when they come for consultation and they will ask whether this time is good for constructing a house. We do find in the chart that that time seems to be more favorable for constructing a house, because they are meditating from so long time. So their thinking is now becoming more in tune with the laws of nature. So their thinking spontaneously is according to their chart from Jyotish. But still it is considered good to confirm from Jyotish, because sometimes there are some planets which may even cause some obstruction in your evolution, in your own TM program. There you may be more busy, or you may not have that deeper experience. So it is good to know from Jyotish. Sometimes there are some planets which cause even some unclarity in thinking. We are not sure which way to go. So it is good to confirm from Jyotish which planet is causing these disturbances. Then we talk of second remedial measure. Again, some of you may have already used the yagyas as well. Maharishi Yagya is the second remedial measure, and that is a very great technology again, because up to now we were talking of the technology of calculating precisely the effect of different planets. Now you can imagine those great sages, they have not only given us the formulas to calculate precisely the effect of each single planet, but they have given some programs, some yagyas to, we can say, to make it better, to make the influence better. We can invocate the planet and we can ask for favor. There are yagyas, specific yagyas for each planet, because they know which type of energy is governing even those planets. So once we know the type of energy which governs that planet, we can use that energy to have a favorable effect or favorable influence from each of the planets. So just as we know that some planet is causing some obstruction, or not only obstruction, if there is some planet which is good but it is weak, still we can do a yagya and we can have more favor from each single. What a yagya is? It is a kind of chanting. As you are listening to some chanting, it is a vibration, we can say, and the modern science now is, we can say, reaching to that level that it can appreciate the use of a language. If you ask a computer programmer how you program your computer, he will say we are using some language. They will not say we are using a formula. They like to say we are using a language. So similarly, those great sages, they have cognized these yagyas in the form of a language, and that language is the Sanskrit language. Because as we were mentioning, the Sanskrit language contains the meaning within the terminology. So we know the vibration for each planet. Maharishi likes us to use even the name of the planets, their Sanskrit names, because just as we take the name of the planet, actually we are getting favor from the planet. So you can imagine those great sages, they have given specific yagyas or specific programs for getting more favorable influence for each planet. And then once you have a good program, then you also need a computer. So the settled level of human consciousness is the best computer for implementing those yajna programs. And Maharishi has trained Pandits in India from the very childhood how to perform these yajnas or how to use these yajna programs. Because it is whole culturing of the nervous system. The whole routine of the Pandit boys in India, it is completely different from other kind of activity. Even there are yajnas for culturing the nervous system. For culturing the nervous system of a Jyotishi, there is a specific routine. There are even specific yajnas which one does so that his speech is right. Those people, like those who have studied Jyotish, they know that even though they may calculate, they may have the knowledge of precisely using those formulas and calculating the influence of the planets, but still when it comes to predict, it needs again the human consciousness. They have developed all the computer programs for mathematically calculating the influence of these planets, but still it needs the human consciousness to tell the effect. And fortunately in India, from the very childhood, we know how a planet behaves, how a planet thinks, how a planet walks. We know the planets like our friends. So it is very easy for us to say how our friend will behave in certain circumstances. And that is how we can say the influence of the planets. And not only saying the influence of the planets, but also suggesting a yajna or performing a yajna to have more favor from those planets. Then there are specific yajnas for each aspect of life. As it is a Vedic knowledge, it covers all aspects of the life of individual. So there are yajnas for having more success in activity, for better health, for more harmony in life, in family, more happiness, more evolution, more success in education. So there are specific yajnas for each aspect of the life of individual. Because even those Ayurvedic physicians, as we mentioned, they knew that sometimes because of the influence of certain planet, the health may not be good. And now we have mentioned of 3 levels earlier: the level of Rishi, the level of Devata, and the level of Chandas. So Ayurveda, it works more at the level of Chandas. You take some herbs or you take Abhyanga. So you are working more at the objective level, even though that is also related to the pure consciousness, but it is working at a more grosser level. While Jyotish and these yajna programs, they work, Jyotish actually it works more at the Rishi level. That is why we say that it is the technology of pure consciousness. Then yajnas, they work more at the level of Devata. So there is no any other method by which you can tackle these planets. These planets can only be tackled, or we can say we can only get favor from these planets by performing yajnas. There is third remedial measure, that is the Maharishi-Jyotish gemstones. What happens is that in those great sages, they have mentioned of some relation to some gemstones for each planet. Like when we calculate a chart and we see that at the time of birth, some planet is very favorable, it is very good for the individual, but somehow at that time its own position, the position of that planet in the cosmos at that time, it itself is weak. So it is just like a friend who wants to do something good to you, but he himself is weak, so you cannot expect much help from it. So what we can do, we can increase the strength of this friendly planet by using a gemstone. We use a Maharishi-Jyotish gemstone just like as a part of our body. So one can use that gemstone as a part of the body, creating more favorable influence for that planet and thereby getting more favor from the planet. Otherwise, sometimes some people, we have seen they like to wear some gemstones or jewelry, and sometimes they may be using a gemstone which may be causing some harmful influence. Using a gemstone without knowing from the Jyotish chart of the individual is just like using a prescription without going to a doctor. So sometimes it may have some harmful influence. It is good to know from one's individual chart whether this gemstone is good and it is good to use it at what times. So in Maharishi-Jyotish consultations, we do suggest some Maharishi-Jyotish gemstones as well. This knowledge of Jyotish can also be used for calculating precisely the time for starting any new event in life. As we have mentioned, like you want to construct a house. Now we can see from the chart whether this time is good to start construction of a house or there may be big financial problems. And we can also see the time which you have selected. At that time there should be more support from the planets so that we are able to have a very good house. When we have a good house, it is also good to know precisely the time when to enter the house so that we can live in the house more happily. So similarly, we can, just like a farmer does for planting the seed, we can also find out a time for any specific activity in our life so that we are getting more support from the nature. This knowledge of Jyotish can also be used by those who don't know their date of birth or they don't know their time of birth. Still, they can use the knowledge of Jyotish. They can come to a Jyotishi and they can ask a question. And the Jyotishi will make the chart of that time. And from that time, one can say the outcome of their thought, outcome of their question. Because this knowledge of Jyotish is the knowledge of time. Once we know in a sequential line, once we know one point, we can calculate all the other points. So it is as simple. We have seen in the life of our, in the course of our tours, many people when they come for a consultation, just as if you go to a doctor, if you go to a good doctor, just as you go to the doctor, he prescribes you a medicine and you are half cured. Similarly, we have seen some people when they come to a Jyotish consultation, actually that is the time when most of their problems are going to be solved. There was a lady in Australia. She came for consultation and she was asking a question. I am trying to sell my house from last 3 or 4 years, but we are not having proper agreement. Within the consultation, she receives a call and she says, the call says that they are ready on her terms. So having a Jyotish consultation is also having like a yajna in one's life, because it is a technology of consciousness. It is an interaction among the consciousness of the individual and the consciousness of the Jyotishis. If the individual is having very settled consciousness, the outcome of the consultation as well is good. So when you come for a consultation, it is good to have very settled level of consciousness so that you are clear in your thinking what to ask. Because we have mentioned within 30-40 minutes we give you an aerial view of life. But then you can also ask specific questions depending on specific rooms in different houses. So you can ask specific questions so that you can have more better outcome or more better bliss, we can say, out of your consciousness, out of your consultation. So it is an interaction among the consciousness of the Jyotishis and of the individual. Also, some of you here may have listened to different talks of different Jyotish teams, as well as you may have enjoyed the consultations of through different Jyotishis. But still, there are 18 great sages in India. In this knowledge of Jyotish, it has been given by different sages. And every sage, like every person in the room, has its own angle to see the same thing. So, when you come for a consultation, from every Jyotish team, you know more potentialities of your chart. It is like having another wave of bliss in your life, because then you are able to, we can say, know your chart from different angles. So it is a great technology of consciousness. We have talked a lot, but the main thing is that this knowledge has been developed as a dialogue between the sages. Like we can say, in India, in our family, we have a family tradition, and we can say that we come from that family tradition, which was inspiring the dialogue and the knowledge was coming. Now we can say in this Maharishi's family, we are all this enlightened community. It is a joy to talk to this enlightened community, and we can have a dialogue and interaction in the consciousness so that we are able to explore the knowledge more. Because what we do, if we have to have cream, we have to churn the milk, then only the cream comes out. So similarly, it is good to ask questions so that we can explore this knowledge of Jyotish. So it is a time to ask questions and talk more about it.
Thank you very much for that enlivening talk. Just before we do take a few questions.
For more information on Maharishi-Jyotish, please call 1-800-888-5797.